Action Jackson by Jan Greenberg and Sandra Jordan, illustrated by Robert Andrew Parker. Some of this account is imagined. We don't know if the sequence of events during the months of May and June 1950, when Jackson Pollock painted Lavender Mist, was exactly as we have described it, but we do have many first-hand reports about the summer when he made so many of his great paintings, his life in the Springs, the way he dressed, the way he talked and walked, and most important, the way he painted. And on those, we have based our story. In the afternoon, Jackson Pollock puts on his paint-splattered boots and walks across the yard. The wind blows in from Gardiner's Bay, bringing the scent of salt marshes and sea lavender. His eyes miss nothing: sunlight on the tree branches, tangled stalks of blackberry bushes, beetles crawling in the grass underfoot. Caw-Caw, the crow he tamed, flies down and lands on his shoulder. His border collie, Jip, runs in circles, demanding a walk, across the fields and down a country road to the wide, sandy beach. But Jackson turns and keeps going. The gray-weathered barn used to be filled with rusted machinery, old fishing gear, and broken tools. Now it's his art studio, a place for painting. Some artists put a canvas on an easel or hang it on a wall. Not Jackson. He spreads his out like a sheet, smoothing it flat with his large hands. He wants his paintings to be big, big as the sky out west where he grew up, flat as the marshland behind the house. Sunlight pokes through cracks in the boards and flies buzz in the dusty studio air. Sliding doors rattle on their frames. He sits silent on the floor, staring at the blank canvas. Some artists cover the canvas with a base coat of white paint. Not Jackson. He wants the paint to soak into the surface, leaving bare patches peeking through the stains of color. Some painters use oil paint or watercolor. Not Jackson. He'll use ordinary house paint from the hardware store to make this painting. Some artists paint pictures of flowers or people or landscapes. Not Jackson. He expresses his thoughts and feelings directly on the canvas, calling it energy and motion made visible. And still he sits, surrounded by the cans of enamel, brushes stiff with dried paint, knives, sticks, spatulas, and canvases, waiting. At last he stands. He chooses a stick and dips it into a can of syrupy paint. Slowly he circles the canvas, stepping around the edges, straddling the corners. Black lines form a tangled web. Now he chooses a brush, working toward the middle. Sprays of color, tan, teal, yellow, and white. An athlete with a paintbrush, he uses his whole body to make the painting. Layers build with each gesture, new colors emerging, blending, and disappearing into the wet surface. He swoops and leaps like a dancer, paint trailing from a brush that doesn't touch the canvas. I want to make a longer and longer line. I want to keep it going. The next afternoon, Jackson prowls around the canvas, studying his work, but he doesn't pick up a brush. Instead, he walks to the beach, past the sandy marshes and the tall spartina grass that waves in the breeze. He spends hours sitting on a grassy dune, watching the gulls. Jackson listens to jazz recordings in the evenings. He likes musicians who improvise, inventing their own melodies as they play. While he paints, the notes spin over and over in his memory. Swish and swish again. The rhythm of the brush matches the rhythm of the music. If a penny fell out of his pocket, he would leave it. An insect lands on the wet paint, and there it stays. Nails and tacks become part of his texture. He caresses the surface with his sticky, paint-stained hands. One, then two handprints across the canvas. Some people will be shocked when they see what he's created. Some angry, some confused, some excited, some filled with happiness they can hardly explain. But everyone will agree Jackson Pollock is doing something original, painting in a way that no one has ever seen before. For the next few days, he and his wife, Lee, plant the vegetable garden. They drive into town in their Model A Ford. He digs for clams on the beach. On the weekend, friends drop by for a party. It'll take another week for the thick paint to dry. Then Jackson and Lee will tack the canvas to a studio wall. Jackson sits silent, staring at the blank canvas spread on the floor of the barn, waiting. Soon he will dip his brush in a can of paint, lifting it high in the air to begin again.